Well, thank you for joining me, Dr. Maxwell, Melody, and for starting our exploration of what maybe Baptists and Anabaptists have in common, or what they can do to commemorate this 500th anniversary of the rediscovery, if you like, of believers' baptism. So can you just share a little bit about yourself and what you currently do?
Absolutely. And thank you for all your work commemorating this really important anniversary. So really grateful for that. I am in Canada in Wolfville, Nova Scotia, and I am Associate Professor of Christian History at Acadia Divinity College, which is our Baptist seminary here. And I also direct the Acadia Center for Baptist and Anabaptist Studies at the school. And also am the chair of the Baptist Heritage and Identity Commission of the BWA. So I've been privileged to serve in these ways, and it's an honor to get to know the Global Baptist family.
Excellent. And how did you get to be the director? This is one off the record. How did you get to be the director of the Baptist and Anabaptist group?
Well, again, I'm very fortunate. In 1991, our church history professor here had the vision of creating this center, partnering with the university library and archives and the Divinity College. And so I was asked to direct that about 5 years ago, and sort of as part of my role as the Christian history professor, but not an automatic one. And so I serve with a great group of folks from Atlantic Canada and around the world on our advisory board. So it's a great privilege.
Thank you for that. So when did you first become aware of this mob called the Anabaptists?
Yeah, a great question. And I thought back about this one, and I think a lot of my awareness of all sorts of different religious groups and movements came when I was studying for my bachelor's degree in Christian studies, and started learning about Anabaptists as I learned about Christian history, about the Reformation. But I think really more sunk in, and I learned a bit more when I was studying for my PhD at the International Baptist Theological Seminary in Europe. And the school, as you probably know, has a fairly strong Anabaptist connection, both in its research and its student body too. And so I got to study with Anabaptists and others from around the world.
Was that Rushlakon or Prague or Amsterdam?
It was in Prague during my day, and it was lovely. I'm sure the campus in Amsterdam is wonderful too. Keith Jones was the rector at this time when I was there. And I will always remember when we would have communion, he would talk about having wine from the vineyards of the Anabaptists in Moravia. And so that was a part of it. And I also use a quote from Keith, Dr. Keith Jones, in my class when we're discussing Anabaptists. And so if you don't mind, I'd like to share that with you.
Yep.
He says, "There is much of value in the passion, vision, and commitment of the radical reformers. To ignore it, for Baptists to ignore it, basically, is to miss out on exciting possibilities for contemporary Christian believing. The Anabaptists, for all their differences, represented in their day a serious attempts to come to terms with the message of the scriptures, understood particularly from a Christocentric perspective, and with an accent upon a gathering church committed to development of a lifestyle and mission which engaged with the surrounding world." And so hoping that we as Baptists can gain some of that passion, vision, and commitment that we find in the Anabaptists historically and today as well.
Yeah, so the focus on the gathered church is something perhaps individualist Baptists need to re-engage with.
I think that could be the case, absolutely.
Yeah. So what do you mean by that term Anabaptist or Anabaptism? What's your understanding of that?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. And, if you're looking at it literally, it means rebaptizer, although the Anabaptists said, we're not rebaptizing, we're performing the first true believer's baptism of these believers. And so when we look historically, it's some of Zwingli's students thought that he and the other reformers hadn't gone far enough with their reforms because these reformers sort of kept the church and the state together. And they maintained infant baptism, other things like that. And Anabaptists said, no, we need to go further. We want to believe and practice only what we find in the Bible. So believer's baptism, discipleship, congregational governance. These were all, believers' baptism, congregational governance were new ideas, or at least in the time they were revolutionary ideas. Separation of church and state was a very revolutionary idea in Europe during this time. Pacifism and sometimes communal living as well for the Anabaptist. And so a very significant historical group, and one that had some influence on Baptists as well. Although, historical research shows that Baptists did emerge at least somewhat in the context of English separatism, but there was also an indirect influence, as I would say to my students, of Anabaptist on Baptists. For example, those early Mennonite congregations in Amsterdam likely influenced the First Baptist Church. And in some parts of the world today, Baptists and Anabaptists continue to live and worship side by side as part of this believers' church tradition, again, the gathered church. And so we have contemporary Anabaptist groups, including but not limited to Mennonites, Amish, Hutterites. So that's just a brief primer on Anabaptism.
Excellent. I could see why people would want to come to your classes. That'd be a lot of fun.
We have a great time.
Yeah. So as a director of your centre, what sort of courses do you offer people? Are they just Divinity students, or regular people can come along if they're not studying for ordination, those sorts of things?
Anyone and everyone is welcome, including auditors from any background of any age. And of course, anyone can take the courses as well. But we offer classes like, everyone takes Introduction to Christian History. And so those lucky people, we get to learn 2,000 years in 12 weeks. So that's a fun one for sure.
12 weeks.
And then Baptist history and polity, we explore the question of Baptist origins, Anabaptist, a little bit about that. And then there's a course, an upper level course called Reformation and Free Church Origins, where we look a bit at the movement as well. And those are some of the courses, but also through this study center that I direct, every 2 years we have an Anabaptist lecture called the Zeman Lecture, focusing on Anabaptist studies. And you can view the past lectures, videos of them on our website, which is ACBAS, that's acbas.acadiadiv.ca. We'll put that link up. Excellent. And we also have an essay prize for graduate students in Baptist and Anabaptist studies for the best published essay in that topic every year. And we're always looking for submissions for that as well. And so those will be on the website. That information will be on the website for that too.
That sounds like fun. We'll have to see if we can get some Aussie students who are interested in this to maybe send you an essay or two.
Would love that. Would love that. The deadline is June 1st, or I think June 31st, June 1st. It's in June anyway. Well, I can find that for you.
Maybe 2024.
Sounds good.
Okay. So if you've got people who are unfamiliar with Anabaptism, what sort of primer introductory reading might you direct them to?
Yeah, well, I have with me one classic here by William Estep, The Anabaptist Story. And so this would be a good starting place, I would say, especially to the roots and the beginnings of Anabaptism.
Uh-huh. And if you're looking to pique the interest of others that are a bit more familiar with history, where would you take them beyond that? Yeah,
well, there's lots of resources, but one that is at least fairly comprehensive in terms of its material is the Global Anabaptist Mennonite Encyclopedia Online, which is just at gameo.org. You can read all sorts of articles about Anabaptist history and contemporary topics as well. So that might be one resource I'd recommend. Okie dokie. So you might be able to put links up to them on the website too, just to Absolutely. Do this. Well, thanks for your time this morning, evening your time, morning mine, and we'll hopefully be able to keep interviewing different people from different parts of Europe and America, Australia, maybe even some people in Africa, to actually talk about this link between Baptists and Anabaptists and what we might learn from each other. And hopefully we'll be able to do this over the next year or so until 2025 comes around. Well, I look forward to watching those videos and thank you for your work on them. Thanks, Melody.
We'll catch up with you later.